A man was woken by his daughter, who he had gained via a contract 2 months ago. The young girl had awoken her contractual father after cooking their meal. 10 years before this moment, rifts had come to the planet Earth, disturbing the peace of the planet. Out of these so-called rifts came countless monsters that the humans were defenseless against. However, certain groups of people, eventually called hunters, developed superhuman abilities. How cliche. These are the ones who fought against these monsters. The hunters gained each game-like statuses, where they could see all of their strength and abilities. A man without special abilities, Lee Do-John, studied for 3 years after his military service and eventually joined the Rift's management agency. As a newbie, Do-Jun was always disorganized and was constantly rebuked. He received his first practical field task after a year joining the agency. He was excited about his first task to go and scout the rifts that had just appeared in Guangdong district. Unfortunately, he was hit by a truck while on his first field job. Lee Do-Jun woke up in a place called the Mum World. In this world, he was killed countless of times. However, thanks to his newly acquired skill, he could wake up to the previous day when he was dead. He was quiet and resurrected so many times that the memories of who he was began to fade. At this time, he had become the world's strongest hunter and was nicknamed Heavenly Demon by Muram World inhabitants. When he eventually became the world's strongest and had nothing else to do, he, by the same way he was teleported to Muram World, was teleported back to Earth. He woke up at the hospital after undergoing 17 hours of surgery. Surprisingly, he was perfectly fine despite being hit by a truck. He immediately left the hospital after waking up, though he still finds it hard to adapt to the new world he is in because his memory is quite vague. Lee had become a powerful human after many lives in the Muram World. All he wishes for is to live an ordinary life. Lee returned to work at Seoul City Hall, where shocked colleagues greet him. They could not believe how much he had changed within 24 hours or even less. According to his colleagues' opinions, he used to stutter more. He was taller and even bulkier within a super short amount of time. One of his colleagues refused to believe him and disallowed him from accessing his desk until he had confirmed his identity. With a fingerprint match which came out positive after many unbelieved attempts, he was given a leave to rest and told to go home. He eventually found his house, which could have been smoother due to his vague memories. He got to his apartment and tried to remember his password when a voice popped inside the house, and a young girl opened the door. The only question that could pop up from his head was, who was this girl? Lee Do-Jun and the strange girl he had found sat by the table inside the house. Here, the girl told Lee who she was. According to her, she is a daughter of Lee's older brother and his girlfriend. Unfortunately, the girlfriend died in an accident. Lee had offered to the girl to come live with him before his accident and even gave her the password to his home. After hearing this young girl's explanation, Lee told her about this accident and his memory loss. He was in no good condition to properly look after himself, not to mention her, therefore refusing the young girl. Having no other place to go as an orphan, the young girl refused a no for an answer. She proposed that he be her contractual father until her graduation, and she would help him with chores as she was recovering. She told him that it was just till she could get to her dorm. Lee considered the offer since he was unfamiliar with living in this world. He would need help navigating around and answers to questions he needed help understanding. He agreed to be with a young girl now identified as Seo Yun-hee under a contract he made and asked Yun-hee to sign it. This marked a father-daughter relationship between the duo, who quickly adapted to their new relationship. A few minutes later, Yun-hee called out to her newly found father about purchasing fresh groceries. Lee gave her his debit card to buy all that she needs to. However, Yun-hee suggested that they go together so that he could jog his memory. The duo purchased their groceries primarily according to Lee's taste. Suddenly, a rift appeared at the store, setting it into disarray as people ran for their lives. In a quick and brisk move, Yun-hee brought out an AK-47 out of her bag while telling her father to run, indicating she is not just any individual. A goblin came out of the rift scaring people. Lee Do-Jun stood at his spot, unwavering or even bothered about the happenings around him. Yun-hee used a gun she had pulled out to shoot the goblin, who fell dead immediately. It was evident at this moment that Yun-hee was a hunter. The security officers came around to ask who had killed the goblin. At first, they thought it was Lee Do-Jun. The latter points to Yun-hee as the one who killed the goblin. The police informed them that they will be dully compensated for their deed, as one of the government's ways of appreciation through the police. Lee told the police to send the compensation to his daughter, as she was the one who took the goblin down. He told them this when his details were asked as a guardian. Back home, a whopping sum of 150 won was transferred to Yoon-hee's account. This is a compensation for killing the goblin earlier that day. Standing at the back, Lee saw the amount and asked her why she chose to stay with him when she could be earning so much more. She explained to Lee that she could only make a little as she was not a licensed hunter. She was only permitted to use a mana gun. Lee commended her for her aspiring to be a hunter. The duo settled to eat their meal after setting out. Throughout the meal, Jenny asked what job her new dad was into. He replied that he works at the city hall as a public official, which must be more accurate as he works with the hunters. They continued to eat their meal, with Yoon-hee urging her father to eat more. The next day, Lee Do-jun appears at his office to the surprise of his colleagues and seniors, who thought he needed to stay home to rest more. His desk was pointed at him. Hyuk-soo introduced himself to Lee as a senior. He offered to help him anytime he needed it. The chief expresses his disappointment concerning the lateness of a hunter that ought to be there. Only a short time afterwards, the hunter came in. She is a young lady with reddish hair. She apologized for her lateness. Hyuk-soo informs Lee who the lady is. She is a newly contracted hunter. Hyuk-soo urges his junior to greet the hunter. He explained as he dragged the not-so-enthusiastic Lee towards a hunter, the duty of their department. Their department handles duties related to risk exploration, therefore they usually have to go to the field with these hunters. The female hunter introduced as Cha Ye-ji. There was an awkward situation between Cha and Lee when they tried to introduce themselves to one another. Following Cha Ye-ji to the field initially belongs to Lee Do-jun. However, both the chief and a senior tried to craftily allocate the job to Hyuk-soo under the pretense that Lee might need to be feeling better due to the accident. With a stern voice that sends shivers down Hyuk-soo's spine, Lee disagrees and declares that he will do his job alone. They had no choice but to allow it. Over a drink break, the chief expresses his desire not to enable Lee to go to the field, and Hyuk-soo sarcastically asks that he should be given a chance. In the car with Yeji, Lee glanced at the document describing his job, getting as much information about the rift as possible. The hunters formally did this, but after false documents circulated, the government had to take charge. Yeji reintroduced herself, stating her age as 21 years old. This caught Lee's attention. He was so lost in studying the documents that he should have paid more attention to the people that were in the car. He inquired from her what was contained in an item that she carried. It is a suitcase that holds her outfits and weapons. The driver announced their arrival. As they proceed to the clearance point, Yeji changes to her 3 million won outfits, the cheapest of the hunter's outfits, using her crystal ball in her suitcase and holds her D-rank skeleton swords. She calls Lee's manager because the latter does not give her a name. They were both cleared and proceeded to enter the rift. Before entering, they encountered 3 other hunters. One of them bullied Yeji, describing her as incompetent as a hunter. Lee asked about her relationship with the bully hunter. He was her colleague at the academy when they were training to be hunters. The bully shifted his attack towards Lee, calling him an F-ranked hunter. Upon telling him to stop, the bully lifted Lee by his neck. At this point, and visible to the only bully, Lee's eyes changed to red. The bully named Na Han-jung was scared to death as he alone could see Lee in another space threatening him. He immediately let go, fell to the ground panting, and even urinated his pants out of fear. However, all the things he saw were only visible to him and not to the others present. Lee sarcastically offered his hand to Han-jung for help as he continued to threaten him in a space visible to him alone. He later pulled Yeji and they both entered the rift.